Welcome to the Instamentor podcast. I am the Instamentor's founder, Leon Wei, and this is the podcast where I interview industry experts and startup founders who share their experiences to help you grow your career in tech. Whether it's landing your first job after graduation from school or switching to a different company or a different career track. In this interview, I talked to Ittai Shiu, who is a marketing operations expert and a savvy business leader with 15 years of experience in advertising technology. I asked Ittai about his experience in advertising technology space, how his team competed with Google for advertiser budget in the early days, unique challenges in scaling up teams when you are in a hypergrowth stage, especially growing internationally. His advice to fresh graduates looking for their first jobs, why you should avoid spray and pray strategy by mass applying for jobs, but instead you should really focusing on a few roles and go all in. His experience in working with his own mentors, and his advice for others who are looking for the right mentors. If you are interested to learn from Ittai directly, you can now book a one-on-one conversation with him at instamentor.com/mentors/Ittai-Shiu. That's ITTAI-SHIU. Hi, Ittai. Welcome to the Instamentor podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Hi, Leon. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me today for this interview. And for our audience out there, can you tell us a bit about yourself? What have you been working on lately?
So, I've spent the majority of my career in advertising technology, working for small companies that get bigger and then get acquired and, break off, in all cases, supporting advertising agencies and big brands on their display and video and digital marketing campaigns, oftentimes in direct competition with Google. So while never having worked for Google, competing for budgets and competing against their sales teams and account management teams, I'm very, very familiar with. Kind of throughout those times, my roles focused on customer success and operations and strategy. I've managed go-to-market initiatives, individual business units, and business expansion. But more recently, I kind of decided to take a step away from that. I ventured out on my own as an operations consultant and a business advisor, and that's allowed me to focus on helping companies and teams transition from one stage to the next, or the next stage of their evolution. And then over my 15-year career, in advertising technology, it's something that I discovered was kind of a common theme, throughout my career, whether it was in a large organization or a small startup or as a consultant. And it's something that I discovered, very, very late in my career, something that I enjoy doing.
Awesome. So when you say you were competing with Google, is there any specific verticals, industries in particular?
Ultimately, it comes down to, in which case, it became harder and harder to, compete on price and reach. However, when there was vertical expertise, primarily in, automotive, which is very nuanced and, very strategic, then we could kind of let our strategic side shine in terms of planning out automotive specific strategies, new model launches, used and pre-owned kind of initiatives. So automotive, and I make the weird kind of connection with entertainment, completely different universe, but then also very nuanced, because entertainment, you plan out releases of movies and television shows and video games and the connection between all of these entertainment channels. And you could have some really fun strategic conversations around how a brand or an advertiser or an auto manufacturer or a studio can best utilize their advertising spend.
Yeah, that makes total sense. What do you think about the newest technology like AR or VR? Do you think that will revolutionize the advertising space?
I really like it. I really like seeing it employed. I get a
Yeah.
kick out of it, and it's kind of like you go to an automotive show and you see the concept car. You're like, wow, that looks
Mhm.
like a spaceship. That's awesome. You know.
Right.
So that's where I think AR, kind of is right now. Where okay, I've got AR environment. It's great to kind of place brands and also like kind of conceptual, level.
Mhm.
But what advertising really is how do you spend $1 million,
Mhm.
$10 million to really build a brand? I mean, reach critical mass, and
Mhm.
and that's where we're not yet at. We'll get there as AR becomes more and more a part of everyday life. So will it's advertising.
Well, thank you for sharing. So you've built large teams across multiple regions and in your 15 years of career. And can you tell us a bit about what do you think are the biggest challenges, especially when you're working a larger projects that involve multiple teams, cross-functional
Yeah.
teams?
Established teams that all
Mhm.
companies need, the customer success and operations, and then I've also had to build out teams requiring like definition and banding, and I've expanded into new territories within the U.S. where we're just trying to expand kind of support where potentially there's some domestic nuances. Also expanding internationally where those nuances become huge cultural divides, but in all cases, finding the right talent is very time and effort heavy. There's absolutely no shortcuts to it. Even if you have the best recruiters, the best people, the best system, you can't cut corners because to build that pipeline of candidates, you have to do your due diligence. You have to sort through skills and education and
Mhm.
experience and really weigh that the regional need. Now, when you're able to kind of weed out those potential fits, then it's almost like then the hard work begins. Then you need to start digging in to really figure out if that candidate is a role and is a role fit and a cultural fit. Because I mean, sure you're building out a team, but it's a team is built out of individuals. So you can't give in to the temptation of just okay, let's hire a bunch of folks and then just kind of like see who drops out. That ends up wasting a
Right.
lot of time and effort and resources. And also in most cases, building teams and filling roles is time sensitive.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of balance that desire to find a great fit under time pressure. You get lucky sometimes, and then sometimes
Yeah.
that perfect person just falls in your lap. But it seems more often those two forces are constantly at odds.
Right. Yeah. During my career, I've made several bad hiring decisions. Exactly like you mentioned, when there's a pressure to deliver a project and you don't have enough people working in your team, sometimes that kind of clouded my judgment in hiring and eventually have to let people go. We have a lot of young professionals on Instamentor who are eager to learn from experienced mentor like you. Do you have any career advice for them? I've constantly heard people asking, hey, I'm trying to apply at the entry-level jobs, but most of those entry-level jobs require like 3 or 4 years of experience. I just got out of school. Like, do you have any advice for those folks?
Yeah. So first off, I've been there. I mean, I've also
Mhm.
pivoted where all of a sudden my skills don't seem relevant, and it feels it's very disheartening, and it becomes really easy to just jump online and apply to every role that isn't remotely relevant,
Mhm.
and you start treating a the journey of your career into a sales funnel or getting
Right.
numbers. Okay,
Mhm.
well, if I apply, to enough places, I'm bound to get something, and that takes the control away from you. And for young
Mhm.
professionals, is don't let go of that control. Stay in control
Right.
of your destiny. Because if you do the spray and pray, that's bad for young professionals. I mean, because like let's just say you've got a great background and you get some interviews. Do you really want that role that you're being called back to interview for?
Right.
And then, I mean, and you've been there. It's bad for hiring managers and companies. Just
Mhm.
completely just adds to the noise. You're overwhelmed by resumes, and then you fall into this trap of not being able to give the right people a chance.
Right.
So the first big thing is really to become invested in the
Mhm.
role that you're applying to. To a young professional, I'd say, okay, you can easily apply to 50 roles in a week. It's so easy. Hit, check, blanket cover letter, blanket resume. And let's just say the worst situation happens, the worst outcome, which is you don't get any interviews. Well, one, that made you feel bad because you're 50 and 0, or you're 0 and 50, and you've gained nothing. Right. Now, if you really invest in a couple of roles and you really let's just say 2 instead of 50, you do the research, you tailor your resume, you craft a genuine cover letter, you do the networking, the outreach to people within the organization, whether it be the hiring manager, the recruiter, potential colleagues. I mean, it will definitely get you noticed. It will definitely improve your chances. Let's say we're back, it's the same outcome. I mean, it's the worst outcome. You don't get an interview, 0 for 2, but you would have gained correspondence, context, experience, and kind of flexing your own story. You've done, you've practiced kind of self-promotion,
right?
And that was time better spent than had you done a spray and pray. Now, when you do land that interview, and this actually goes to my second piece of advice for young professionals that are trying to figure out what's next, is don't just be a collection of skills and degrees and experience. Like you said, I mean, a student getting out with no experience, there's the habit of like, okay, well, I got a 4.0 GPA, I went to this school, I was on this club, and that's not the best approach either. I mean, it's natural reflex. Let me fall back on my skills. Now, Liana was spying on you. I looked at your LinkedIn profile, and you are incredibly accomplished. But in our conversations, you presented yourself as a list of everything that you've accomplished. That conversation wouldn't be too interesting. No offense. You have an incredible narrative. I mean, Amazon, Apple, data scientist experience, channeling that experience into entrepreneurship, where you've created multiple startups, helping to define the future of AI, and now helping young professionals succeed in the job market. Wow, Leon, that's awesome. Let's go get a drink and tell me more.
And as you mentioned, I think for young professionals, I guess the takeaway for me is that you don't have to be like really desperately looking for any job that might remotely related to your experience. I think your passion is still like super important. So you find a job that you're not passionate about and you work on it for 3 months, and it's not good for any size, right? So I would say like for probably just be a little bit more patient, right? So find your passion. If you haven't found that yet, just keep looking and until you find something you're passionate to work on. Right?
Yeah, and everything you said about yourself, Leon, I mean, those are great stories. Failures and warts and all, they make for a good story. They make for a good narrative, and that's huge, because I mean, a LinkedIn profile may tell me that 90% of you're 90% match for this role, but that's not going to get you the job. I'm not going to hire you because of that. I mean, but I, the hiring manager, I've got my own narrative. I mean, I want to solve a problem. I want to build a business off of this AI solution. I'm an entrepreneur, and I need someone who knows their stuff, but also someone who can channel that energy. I mean, I'm not going to hire you because of your skill and education, although that may have gotten you noticed, because there's synergy in between our narratives. So those are my first, like my 2 big things. I mean, is 1, invest in the roles that you apply to, and then 2, invest in your personal narrative.
Right. So thanks for sharing your insights. This is definitely very helpful. Just out of curiosity, like, have you ever had a mentorship, whether officially or unofficially, in your own life or career? If so, like, what do you think you learned most from your mentor?
Yeah. I've had a few, but I wish I had more. And actually, this is one thing, a point that I want to make is it doesn't have to be like Yoda and Luke Skywalker. Right. You can have multiple mentors. It's okay, but yeah, I've had a mentor. Started off as my manager 20 years ago. I mean, and to this day continues to be a source of wisdom around business and parenthood and just life. Yeah, and regardless of what category of mentorship I need, I mean, one thing that she always does, I mean, for one thing, she knows me and is blunt enough with me to kind of cut to the chase, which is a great thing to have in a mentor. But it just breaks down to, I mean, Ittai, what is it exactly that you want? What do you envision that you need out of this scenario? And is the blocker out there in the world where's the blocker kind of in here?
Mentally, yeah.
I mean, and that cuts out in the preamble and we're just straight to the like, okay, mentor, let me break that down. And it's great. It's actually helped me get through a lot of like very challenging times in business and career and life.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so actually one of the major reason I decided to quit my full-time job and launch Instamentor is that like I also met a few great people in my career, and I just like a simple conversation with them. It would take me like months or years to figure out myself, right? And we all have made mistakes in our career. We all have successful stories as well. And for Instrumental's purpose, our mission is like, can we like share our own stories, like whether it's a success, whether it's a failure, in a very short period of time to our audience so that they can learn in a very efficient way, and then they can avoid the same mistakes that I made in my career. Can you share like what do you think are the best piece of career advice you ever received from your mentor or anybody?
Yeah, I mean, say mentor, and she was actually great at making connections and building a framework by which one could get help. And it's during a transitionary time in my career, and she had advised me to reach out and talk to a number of different people. And I was kind of hesitant. I mean, I don't want to inconvenience people. I haven't talked to some of these people in ages. I'm not even connected to these people. What if they don't have the time, or what if they don't want to help me? And it was very simple, like response, which is, and I've thought about it a lot over the years. And she said, deep down, everyone wants to help. You know. No, like, and I mean, people say, okay, there's no such thing as a completely selfless act, which I also kind of believe, but it's genuine human nature that if there's a need and something or someone that they know can help, they'll offer it up because it makes them feel good. It validates all of the work they've done. They've invested in their career and their network. And I realized that was absolutely the case with me. I mean, if someone I barely knew could use my input and it would help them somehow get ahead, I do it and I feel good about it. Everyone wants to help.
You're probably not expecting to get anything back from that person, right? Most of the case.
Yeah, I mean, and it is gratifying over the years to see anyone that you helped out be successful, and that's great. But I think even still, like, there is an instant gratification with. I mean, we've been professionals for so many years. We have a lot of days where we're just kind of tired and beat down. And sometimes a nice conversation with someone will brighten our day and make us go, okay, well, I'm doing this for something. There's that, as well as the long-term, karma that eventually you realize you may have like mentored the future Elon Musk and, might score a free trip up to a satellite. I don't know.
Awesome. For young professionals, like sometimes also I feel they're struggling to find a good mentor because they didn't come from a huge network themselves, right? They have a relatively small personal network, and they don't have a lot of alumni working in the top tier companies. Like, do you have any advice for them? Like, what do you think are the best way for young professionals to find a mentor?
Yeah. So, I think as we talked about, like the biggest obstacle is kind of in here is first off, the mentor-mentee, relationship, we don't need to romanticize it. It's not going to be Yoda and Luke. It should never be Yoda and Luke, because you're allowed to have multiple mentors throughout your career. They don't have to be in your industry. They don't necessarily need to be the same walk of life or alumni. You can find them kind of, anywhere. And it's just kind of be open-minded about who you would consider as a mentor. And if you have criteria for a mentor, it must be Ivy League graduate unless they're an industry giant like Elon Musk. Take a couple step backs back from that. But with that in mind, think about the people within your network who, if I'm an AI specialist or if I want to career in AI, maybe not an AI veteran, anyone within your network that has the capability to give you guidance and objectivity and feedback that you would value and trust. And then also it's just ask. Doesn't hurt to ask, because deep down everyone wants to help.
Absolutely. Awesome. So if you can go back to your early career, do you think you would do anything that is differently, or what would you say to your younger self?
Like you, I've taken some missteps. Those are scars and bruises that kind of made me who I am.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't want to take away that lesson, but I would have wished to have asked for more help. I mean, and this is what fuels how passionately I consult young professionals about, like, okay, I mean, find mentors, ask for help. I mean, like, what, be a mentor. I mean, like, you have no experience, but hey, maybe there's like all incoming freshmen who
Mhm.
absolutely lost. So that you understand like the gratification that comes from helping somebody and applying your skills and experience so that that freshman can get ahead.
Right.
So as like a seasoned veteran, will have that same gratification if they're able to kind of provide you with the guidance that you need to get ahead.
Right. So we have a very diverse group of students or customers who are actually looking for seasoned mentors to talk to. And if they wanted to have a discussion or conversation with you, what group of people do you think your experience, your unique expertise can benefit the most?
Yeah. So then we touched on it earlier about folks who aren't exactly sure,
Right.
what direction to take their career. Despite having great academics or a great
Mhm.
list of skills, there's the folks who aren't sure what direction to take. Like
Mhm.
the jack of all trades, master of none. Actually,
Right.
I very fond of folks who kind of consider them generalists because,
Yeah.
right, I mean, and it's, they're folks who know the exact path that they want to take, and so that's great. Having that focus is an absolute gift. I
Mhm.
mean, I certainly didn't have that. I mean, in my 20s, actually, to this day, I'm still consider myself more of a marketing operations, generalist.
Mhm.
But there are folks who think to themselves, well, I'm not sure if this company know what to do with a person like me. I'm not sure how to bring it all together.
Mhm.
Those are the people that have the best narratives. Those are the people that have the stories buried. I mean, that are not sure how to put it together to really set themselves apart because they haven't put enough time into their personal and professional narrative. And and
Right.
and those are the folks that I really like working with.
Got
It's
it.
a
I guess. Yeah.
big commitment for you to say, I mean, like, even if you make the decision, I want to be a doctor, you have time, to
Mhm.
really figure out, like, well, what specialty, what type of clientele, where. I mean, and I think, especially if you're a recent undergrad, you don't give yourself
Mhm.
enough slack. Well,
Mhm.
I graduated in accounting. I must go to Big Six. Otherwise, I mean, that kind of helps define, like, that's not necessarily the path for you. So, I mean, so to those young professionals, cut yourself some slack and, like, kind of narrow it down, and let's figure out what direction by looking at your past and your interests and your passions.
Mhm. That makes total sense. Yeah. Thanks again, Itai. Really appreciate you sharing your wisdom to young professionals. I'm sure a lot of us will benefit a lot by just listening to your wisdom. And also, again, thank you for signing up and offering your precious time on Instrumental and to helping others. I know that you just started something new, and I wanted to wish you all the best. And hopefully, we'll get you back to the show in the future sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Leon, thanks for your time. Also, everything that you're doing with Instamentor. I think it's an awesome initiative, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Itai. Talk to you later.
Okay, all right.
Thanks again for joining me. I will talk to you in our next episode. Stay tuned.